All right, first and foremost, give all praise to you, how about Shemi Al-Shabarak and give sincere greeting to the brothers and sisters scattered across the four corners, teaching this word with sincerity and charity. I'm Brother Phineas with Prince of Power Israelites. Here to just break down one of these new doctrines that is kind of making some noise within Israel. It's been here. But it's been brewing underneath, you know what I'm saying? Brother's been trying to keep this thing on the hush hush. And that's one of my things too, man. If you feel like this is the absolute truth, this thing needs to be pushed and it needs to be challenged. One of my brothers, Brother Zias, man, he had me make him a shirt. He says, truth does not fear investigation. Okay, truth does not fear investigation. And so just the fact that a lot of these things have been, you know what I'm saying, under the surface, people have been fearful of bringing out these certain doctrines and stuff like that because they don't really want to be questioned, or they don't really want to really know the truth, or to have that thing, their fear of them having that thing investigated, and those things come up not to be true. Now, the doctrine I'm talking about is this push for veganism. And you've probably seen a couple people deal with this. We just seen Malachi and Brother Yaki, you know what I'm saying, great brothers, far as I know, on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? I only know them on YouTube. I only know what I know from them on YouTube. These brothers have been teaching and doing work for countless years. And brothers are very knowledgeable in a lot of things. But, you know what I'm saying, YouTube is YouTube, man. You know what I'm saying? That's what I've learned about this truth in my short walk, is that YouTube is different than real life. And a lot of the people that I reverence within Israel, because I you know what I'm saying, I hold them to a certain accountability based on how they, you know, that character is built on what I see on YouTube. I try to stay away from. So a lot of people are like, well, you don't do no unity camp and It's because I stay away from some people. I just feel like they may ruin the you know what I'm saying, the reverence that I have for them. You know what I'm saying? And I may see them in a different light. And I really don't, you know what I'm saying, I really just try to avoid that. I try to avoid that, and, you know, that's just me, but that's neither here or there. All right, so the gospel of the Holy 12 is what this doctrine is based upon, okay? Once this doctrine is based upon the gospel of the Holy 12, and they are saying that this book is older than any other text. Like, this book is older than the other gospels, and we should be looking at this book rather than what is being said by Matthew, Luke, and John and Mark. But what we're gonna come to find out is that with just some basic research on this particular what they say is fragmented scroll, or this scroll that was received by this certain individual, that these things just don't add up. And I'm not going to be the one to tell you. All right, that's another thing too. I'm not going to be the one to tell you. I'm not going to be the flesh eater. It's not going to tell you that the gospel of the Holy 12 cannot be authenticated. I'm gonna let someone who is a vegan, who does push that Yahushua was a vegan, or the Messiah, or Hamashiach, or Yeshua, or Christ, or Jesus, if y'all want to say that, that he was a vegan and actually pushes a plant-based diet to his congregation. And he's asked, why doesn't he teach from the gospel of the Holy 12? And you'll see, we're going to chop up some of his video and we'll see exactly what he says about it. Because I know a lot of people don't want to hear this thing from no flesh eaters. Because the gospel of the Holy 12 says, you know what I'm saying, they kind of lack understanding if they are not being humane to animals, and if they are eating flesh and lusting at the flesh, then, you know what I'm saying, they can lack some understanding. So we'll let a plant-based minister tell them why the gospel of the Holy 12 ultimately is trash. Okay?
If you've not heard of the gospel of the Holy 12, this is the article from Wikipedia. It says the Gospel of the Holy 12 is a disputed, widely believed to be pseudographic publication purportedly from the early Christian era, which was first serialized in the Lindsay and Lincolnshire Star newspaper between July 30th, 1898 and March 10th, 1901. The first collected edition of essays, or lections, by the author, a former clergyman, Reverend Gideon Jasper Richard Owsley, was published in 1901. By the time of Owsley's death, the title was out of print, but the executor of his manuscript, Samuel Hopgood Hart, reissued the text in 1924. There have been numerous editions published since the 1950s, and the title remains in print and on the internet. The Gospel of the Holy 12 presents a vegetarian version of traditional teachings and events described in the canonical New Testament. This first collected volume was issued by the Order of the At-One-ment and United Templar Society, a publishing imprint which the author had established in 1881. The explanatory preface referred to an ancient source manuscript preserved in the monasteries of Tibet, which has never been produced or proven to exist. In subsequent editions released during the early 1900s, the anonymous editors revised their claim by stating that the text was communicated by departed mystics in dreams and visions of the night. The work remains unrecognized by academic biblical scholars and has been dismissed by modern theologians and historians of the animal rights movement. In response to a campaign by People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, which claimed Jesus was a vegetarian, the Reverend Professor Andrew Lindsay referred to the Gospel of the Holy 12 and similar publications, stating, "Try as I may, I can find no evidence for their antiquity, and I deeply fear that they are the works of fiction." Richard Allen Young, a professor of New Testament studies, has similarly stated, "It appears that Owsley created the Gospel of the Holy 12 in support of animal welfare and vegetarianism."
All right, so that's just basic wiki. You know what I'm saying? That's just basic wiki scholarship there. If you just Googled it, and I feel our brothers and sisters just ignored that information that was being said there. All right, so in one instance, they were saying during the first publications of it, they were saying that that there were some. There was this stroll that was being held in the monasteries in Tibet, and this is where they got this gospel from. And then in subsequent or later translations or later publications, they were saying that he heard this from 4 mystics. All right, 4 people came and visited him, and they actually had to stroll. All right, these mystics visited him. They have to stroll in his dreams. Now they have to stroll, and they're reading it to him, and then he's writing this stuff down as this stroll is being read to him in this dream by these 4 mystics. Very problematic, very problematic. Also, you see that the animals, the Humane Society of Animals, like they even looked into it, and then they couldn't even use it. And of course they would have wanted to use. They wanted to use that Yahweh or Jesus wanted to save the animals. So the Animal Rights Humane Society, or however they say it, I'm tearing that thing up. But this animal rights group, one of the biggest animal rights group in America, or maybe even the world, they couldn't even use it, and they threw it out. Okay, they didn't want to use it because ultimately they couldn't prove or authenticate that this was actually a true scroll that was an ancient scroll that really was written by, I think people say that John the Revelator wrote this, the same person that wrote Revelations. And that should be a clue too, that a question mark too, because it's not written like John the Revelator. You know what I'm saying? It has certain speech in there, like Father, our Father, Mother. Like, when did anybody call the Most High Father, Mother? You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of things that hit in there that's real questionable. But again, this is not me speaking. This is a vegan minister that's gonna tell you, and not just him. You know what I'm saying? It's people in these groups that want this to be true, but it's just not. It's just not. And it's the same thing with the LGBT community. right? The LGBT community, you know what I'm saying? They're going to pick certain things and they would make Jesus gay. And they have a LGBT Bible, right, where they've inserted certain things. And I'll talk about that a little later and break that down. But you're going to see how this author of this text kind of just slithered a lot of these things in here. And really is just a copy and paste work. But let's continue on. Let's see what else the vegan minister had to say about the gospel of the Holy 12 and why he doesn't teach it, why he doesn't quote from it in his ministry.
Century, Anna Kingsford and Edward Maitland. They were a couple of Christian mystics who died right around the end of the 19th century. So that's who Owsley is saying gave him the text. He's saying that he had dreams and visions, and that Swedenborg, Kingsford, Maitland, and this priest would appear to him in different visions and give him the text of the Gospel of the Holy 12. He goes on to say, by them it was translated from the original and given to the editors, who again, the editors is Owsley, given to Owsley in the flesh to be supplemented in their proper places where indicated from the four Gospels, revised where necessary by the same. To this explanation, the editors cannot add nor take away from. By the divine spirit was the gospel communicated to the four above mentioned, and by them translated and given to the writers, not in seance rooms where too often resort the idle, the frivolous, and the curious, attracting spirits similar to themselves rather than the good, but in dreams and visions of the night. So, what Reverend Owsley is saying in his introduction is that this work was channeled to him from these the spirits of these four dead people.
So we see that, this thing was prophesied to him by dreams. Okay, this thing came by dreams, like we said a little earlier, and just see it again reestablished there by the vegan minister. Okay, someone who teaches this. So he's not going to just attack this doctrine and say, well, attack not the doctrine, but this particular text, and say that it's just, he would like this thing to be authentic. You know what I'm saying? But he just knows that it's not, and it's problematic that he's saying that this thing came from a dream where he's seen these four people come and read from the scroll. Like he didn't actually have the scroll, but he's saying that these people were reading from this particular scroll that happened to be kept at this monastery at Tibet. But he didn't never see the scroll, never had the scroll, but he's saying that it was read to him in a dream by these four individuals, or magis as they called them. Anyway, very problematic. Let's read a couple of scriptures here. Jeremiah 22:32. Behold, I am against them that prophesy false dreams, saith Yahweh, and do tell them, and cause my people to err by their lies and by their lightness. Yet I sent them not, nor commanded them. Therefore they shall not profit his people at all, saith Yahweh. And it's not going to profit you, especially if you're listening to Owsley in his dream and how he interpreted the pretty much the Gospel of Luke, and then adding in his own narrative and his own doctrine as far as his veganism push. It's not going to profit you, because it's going to push you to not believe that Yahweh Shai died for your sins, that the blood is an atonement for your sins. And when you come into that belief, you're not going to enter into the kingdom. All right, you're not going to enter in without being covered by that blood. All of those things can be against you if you're not covered by the blood of the Messiah. All right, so let's continue on. Let's see what else he has.
It's almost like a copy and pasted King James. Now, what he has said is that these four people would appear to him, and they had this Aramaic text of this gospel that was left in Tibet, and they would read from this Aramaic text, and they would translate it to Reverend Owsley, and Owsley would then write down this translated text, and that's where this Gospel of the Holy 12 comes from. However, somebody actually went and compared the text of the Gospel of the Holy 12 with the canonical Gospels, and apparently most of it is just word for word from the 1611 King James Version. So at this website at the bottom of the screen, I found this following quote. It says, "The following clearly demonstrates which portions of the Gospel of the Holy 12 were copied directly from the King James Version of the Bible by color-coding the King James Version verses. Upon first glance, one might get the impression that the uncolored black portions were the original Aramaic text, in quotes, discovered by Owsley, and the colored portions were simply where he filled in between the fragments. This position completely loses credibility when we realize that, one, there is no proof of such a manuscript, and apparently Owsley never claimed such existed, and two, 70% of what is listed below matches the King James Version verbatim. It becomes obvious that the King James Version was the original base text, with the four channelers or whomever rewriting and inserting verses where necessary. What is being presented here represents the first 18 chapters, or approximately 1/5 of the complete Gospel of the Holy 12. And so if you go to the website, this is what you'll see, and he's got the first 18 lections of the Gospel of the Holy 12 that you can scroll through, but the majority of it is green, which green is for Luke. Now, if these people were reading from an Aramaic and translating it to Owsley, why does their translation that they gave orally to Owsley, why does it match perfectly the King James Version, which was translated from a Greek text? To me, it sounds really far-fetched. And so it matches verbatim, except for these little insertions where the vegetarian position is inserted. To me, it just doesn't seem believable. It doesn't seem genuine. I agree that with the author of this website, I think that Reverend Owsley just took the Gospels and edited them to fit. That he probably read a lot of the same material I have, and he just made up a gospel to fit his beliefs. And I don't think he was doing it to be underhanded. And I mean, maybe he really did see dreams and visions. Maybe it really was given to him in a vision. But it's not something I'm going to quote on my channel. It's not something I'm going to build doctrine on.
So you see, there's no way that an Aramaic text will translate the exact same way verbatim as a Greek text would, which the KJV 1611, if you didn't know, was translated from a Greek text, man, the Masoretic text. I mean, not the Masoretic text, Shalakia, but the Greek Septuagint. Masoretic text was used also in the Tinsdale Bible, was major factors in that translation, but there was no Aramaic being used. So it's like, how would this translate exactly the same? How would it translate word for word, verbatim, like Luke? They said 70% of this thing is word for word. So that's very problematic, man. You know, if that don't, and then you just insert. And so somebody went through the trouble to go through that complete text and show that this thing is exactly like Luke, and they're just inserting their vegetarian doctrine in there, here and there. You know what I'm saying? Where they see a little gap there where they can enter it in, or they need to change something. All right, the fish, he didn't feed them fish and bread. He fed them grapes. You know what I'm saying? John didn't eat locusts. He was eating fruit from the locust tree. You see what I'm saying? And so he wasn't wearing camel skin. He was, you know, and they just insert certain things that, you know, that goes against their doctrine. They try to go in and fix those things. And that's the same thing with the LGBT community with their gay Bible. Okay, they go in and they insert their gay love doctrine inside of the text. All right. They insert, and it's the same thing how they've done it. I haven't read no darn gay Bible. I wouldn't even buy it to even, but I know there is one. All right, I know there is a gay Bible, a genderless Bible, where they insert their own ideologies in there, and I'm sure they will have Jesus doing certain miracles, just like in this text they have Jesus doing certain miracles, or releasing the animals, saving the bunny rabbits, keeping people from abusing the whores, you know what I'm saying. So it's like he just this animal rights advocate, you know what I'm saying, more so than healing the people. Some of the things that he could have been doing, some of the things where he was healing people, they actually flipped it to him releasing certain animals. And again, this is just to push their doctrine. And I'm sure some homosexuals have done the same thing, where they will grab the text and put some homophobic thing in there, where Jacob didn't sleep with Rebecca and Rachel, but you know what I'm saying, he actually really had this love for Esau. You know what I'm saying? When he went into the field, he wasn't really scared of Esau, but they had this fling that they had before, and this is why they hated each other so much. You know what I'm saying? It's just easy to throw that stuff in there, man. And then people be like, you know what? That makes sense. That makes sense. See, I was thinking that. And see, that's what brother be. I was thinking. I mean, he's trying to fill in those gaps. All right, let's see what else he says.
But to say that this gospel is from an Aramaic manuscript found in a monastery in Tibet is not only totally unsubstantiated, it is a misrepresentation of Ousley's and Kingsford's views. Anyone thinking this should heed Ousley's own statement, seek not from without, within is the true light, without is bewilderment and darkness. After all, if you have the divine spirit, what need would you have for ancient manuscripts? So, essentially, Ousley never said that he found this manuscript. He's saying that he got it, that it came from the manuscript, but the manuscript was being read to him by these people that appeared to him in dreams and visions. And so maybe this is something that resonates with you. Maybe you read this book and you think it's good to go. I don't. There's other gospels similar to this one that are almost certainly just made up. There's a Essene gospel of peace, and a humanitarian gospel, or a humane gospel, that a lot of people who have this understanding about the Ebionite diet of eating vegetarian, they'll quote from this. And I've had people quote from this gospel, or from these supposed gospels, as if they were scripture. And I don't buy into them. Like, I think that the humane gospel and this gospel of peace, I think they're just something that people made up from their own imaginations. And that's really what I feel like with this gospel of the Holy 12. I really don't think that it's anything genuine. Now, doesn't mean that some of the stuff in it's not true. Certainly, I believe that the theology behind it, that Yeshua taught to eat a plant-based diet, I believe that that's true. But just because that part is true doesn't make this book genuine.
All right, so we see, man, even Osley even said, listen, man, you don't need no ancient manuscript when you have the divine spirit within yourself. This is his quote. So he's telling you, man, if you believe that there's some kind of ancient manuscript, you're going actually against one of the sayings of Osley, of the writer of this gospel of the Holy 12. All right, and you see this this minister here, he believes that Yahushua taught a plant-based doctrine, but he will not use the Essene gospel of peace. He will not use the gospel of the Holy 12, and he mentioned a few others that he feels just is completely made up. And scholars have already thrown these things out. They already have been labeled as fictitious, and our people are clinging to this thing. and putting it and making it more authoritative than the actual scriptures. All right, and bringing in certain doctrines to try to establish this thing, like your Jeremiah 8:8 and your Ezekiel 20:26, and we're gonna go over some of that stuff, man, and we're gonna go into the gospel of the Holy 12. All right, so just continue on. This is just part one, man. This is just part one. We're gonna go into the gospel of the Holy 12 and show you some of the doctrine that's placed within there that's very problematic to the text, which ultimately takes you out of the path of salvation, and you know that Eden like garden that you want to get to, you mess around and be kept out of that, get out of that garden, out of that tree of life, because you didn't believe in the blood of the Hamashiach. You didn't really understand what he came to do you, or you have understood. So you had half your faith. You had half of the faith necessary for salvation, but you didn't have faith in that other half, which is that blood. It's one thing to believe that the Hamashiach was the Son of God and walked the earth and did certain miracles and so forth, and then it's another thing to believe that his death makes forgiveness for your sins. All right. With that, I'm gonna say shalom, y'all, till we get to the next couple of vids. Again, we gonna try to just, you know what I'm saying, just grind this thing into dust. All right, I grind this thing into dust. I have plenty of more coming with people saying, you know, Paul went off. People saying Jeremiah was going against the sacrificial laws, and how they throwing away Leviticus 1-7, Leviticus 11, the dietary code. They not understanding the burnt offerings wasn't even eaten by the priests. So we're gonna get into those things. So shalom, man. Hope it was edifying. And again, this is just to you know what I'm saying, just give warning to the people, man, to help them understand what they're getting themselves into when they start digging into these other books, these pseudo picgrapha books. You know what I'm saying, has that keyword on there, that pseudo. You know what I'm saying, which should get, you know, ring alarm bells out the gate. But shalom, y'all, till next time.